You are listening to Meet the Thriller Author, the podcast where I interview writers of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense books. I'm your host, Alan Peterson, and this is episode number 134. In this episode of the podcast, we'll be meeting Sebastian Fitzek, who is one of Europe's most successful authors of psychological thrillers. His books have sold more than 12 million copies, have been translated into more than 24 languages, and are the basis for international cinema and theater adaptations. Sebastian was the first German author to be awarded the European Prize for Criminal Literature, and he currently lives in Berlin with his family. Sebastian's latest book, The Package, is a twisted and terrifying thriller, which is out now. Had a great time talking with Sebastian about his writing process, about writing psychological thrillers, the European thriller market, and a lot more. So stay tuned for that interview coming up here in just a second. A quick reminder, please go check out thrillingreads.com/links. You'll have access to all my links on there. You'll be able to rate and review this podcast in your favorite podcast application. You'll be able to join my newsletter and check out the show notes for this episode. So check out thrillingreads.com/links. All right, here is my interview with Sebastian Fitzek. Hi, everybody. This is Alan with Meet the Thriller Author. And on Zoom, I have Sebastian Fitzek. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, totally right.
Thank you. He is one of Europe's most successful authors of psychological thrillers. His books have sold over 12 million copies and translated into over 24 languages. Wow. His latest book, The Package, was published in November here in the States. Welcome to the podcast, Sebastian.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background, please?
Well, to be honest, I never intended to be an author in the first place. I wanted to be a tennis player, but I found out that I'm not as good enough to do it. And then I wanted to be a musician. And I played drums for 13 years, but I wasn't good enough there in it too. So I studied law. In Germany, everybody studies law if they don't know what to do after they got their the school finished. And well, on my way, I ended up as a program director of a private radio station. And all the time during these different stages, I always was a big reader. Reading is thriller reading is my first hobby. So once I decided, well, let's try it by myself. Maybe I have an idea which is worth to put it on paper. So and I was lucky that I wasn't the only one who liked it.
So you were doing the regular job while you were writing your first book?
Well, yeah, actually, I was working at the radio station, and I had to travel a lot because there were several radio stations all across Germany, and I was more the consultant. I didn't like it. I wanted to do something for my own, and in all this spare time on a plane or in a train or at the hotel, I started writing, and then the hobby writing turned out to be my profession, and radio became just a hobby.
And so what were some of the authors that you read that influenced you? Did you read American thriller writers, or what's the thriller like books in Europe?
Yeah. Well, I'm a child of the 80s, and I think so many authors, even German authors, were influenced by Stephen King, because when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I read all these page turners and all through the night. And so I discovered the American authors. For me, I was a big fan of Michael Crichton, for example. And when I studied law, of course, I read all the big lawyer, of course, like John Grisham and every others. And later on, I became a fan of Harlan Coben, who wasn't so famous at this time in Germany. So yeah, I was influenced by a lot of American authors and also films, to be honest.
And what was your first book? When was that published?
My first book was published in 2006 in Germany.
Yeah.
I wrote it between 2000 and 2002. It took me then 2 years to find a publisher, and they needed 2 more years to find the right slot. So in 2006, it was a very low amount of copies, I think it's about 3,000 copies all over Germany. But then it got good reviews, good ratings, and a little hype came out of nowhere. And I was very lucky that the first book became a bestseller. Not very high on the list, but it was a success. So I was lucky to continue.
And what's your writing style like? For if listeners haven't read your stuff before, what's your style like?
Yeah, maybe to quote Stephen King, he wrote a book, obviously about writing, and he said there are two different types of thriller authors. Like one is like the speedboat, and you jump in and it starts right ahead, and the other is more like a cruise ship, and it needs a little bit of time, but when the big ship is on the ocean, then you can't stop it. And I think I'm more like a speedboat writer. I like it when it really jumps in, and I'm very interested in how do normal people react on weird situations which are not trained to survive. So I'm not I don't write I like them, but I don't write them. Investigation stuff like police series. They're more standalones, and there is the question: what if something like this would happen to you? How would you react? And so it's more fast paced.
Yeah, I really like the premise of your book. Your latest book is The Package, and basically somebody receives a package and it kind of goes from there. That's a really neat concept. Can you tell us about your latest book?
I live in a very small street, and for years, and I thought I knew everyone in the street. And but once, out of a sudden, the mailman asked me to take a package for a neighbor, and the name on the package, I didn't know which neighbor this could be, and I was instantly thinking, okay, this could be a great idea for a thriller. Is it an evil package or a weird neighbor, or is there a special reason why I received this package? So I started thinking about this, and so the idea for the package was born. And in the package, the book, you have a victim, Emma Stein. She was a victim, and somebody really did a cruel thing to her in a hotel room. And the story starts when she is paranoid. She's a psychiatrist by herself. She knows all the symptoms that she's paranoid because she fears that the guy who really raped and hurt her in the hotel room would come again. And she doesn't live the home. She lives in a very small street. She knows every neighbor. She gets everything delivered. And out of a sudden, the mailman asks her to take a package. And she doesn't know for which neighbor. And so she doesn't know, is she paranoid, or will she let the evil into her home with this package? So this is the premise of the book.
That's great. What's the process now? Because you write your books in German and then it gets translated into English. Are you involved in that process? How does that?
Well,
I'm curious about that.
To be honest, I'm not. I think you have to be a native speaker to understand, have a feeling if the translation, even if the translation is good or not. I couldn't translate my books. I'm glad that I have a great translator, but I wouldn't be able really to be part of the process. Sometimes the translator is involved because there are, of course, my thrillers, they can take, I think, place all over the world. They're not typical German or typical Berlin thrillers because they have psychological thrillers. But sometimes there was an audio play of one of my book. It's called The Child, and it was available in America, and it was an audible success. and I got some reviews, and they were said that this author is totally insane. Who on earth can think about this? Because I wrote about a mother giving away her baby and dropping it at a hospital, and there is like a door. You can push it through and through this door, and we call it baby klappe. And they said, what is he thinking about? The fact is, it really exists in Germany. So you really have, because they don't want the mothers or fathers to put the baby somewhere and to let it die. So you can bring it to the hospital anonymously, and you can really push it like a parcel through, like through a cat door. Maybe it's like the same system. So they were thinking I was insane, and then other people were writing, no, it really exists in Germany. And then say, oh, the Germans, they are insane.
Yeah, actually,
that's a good idea, and it saves lives.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, and they're actually starting to do that here now in the States.
Okay.
In California, they have anonymous just drop it off and walk away in the fire station.
So they weren't used to it. Maybe, I don't know, on the East Coast. I don't know if they were used to it. So sometimes it's necessary to talk to a translator if this is really happening or not, and what do you mean by this? But these are just questions once in a while when they pop up. So, but I'm not involved in the art of translating.
Yeah, it's kind of like the audiobooks. You want a professional to narrate your audiobooks. You don't want to read your own audiobooks.
That's right. Even if you have a good voice, because I worked at a radio station, and I never was a DJ, but once in a while I could read the news or something like this. But there's even one more aspect. Every time a lot of authors, they want to read their own audiobooks. I don't know why, but I always keep telling them no. One part of my success in Germany and Europe was that it was by accident. The company choose somebody who was already known, so he had his own fan base, which is perfect. I mean, nobody heard about me like now. Nobody really knows me in the US, but maybe the speaker of an audiobook. So this could open up and get a little bit more attention.
Yeah. From a marketing perspective, it makes sense to go with somebody that's known.
Totally. Yeah. Even this, and they do a better job. If they translate trained actors, they do a great job.
Yeah. And so, I'm curious about your writing process. Do you, like, when you start writing your books, do you have do you outline, or do you just kind of start writing it like
No, I have an outline. It's not like some other authors. I know they have 200, 300 pages for a 400 pages book. They know everything. This would be too boring for me, because when I have 200 pages outline, the whole story would be told, and it would be only work to write it, and I wouldn't do it, because I'm a lazy guy. But I have 20 pages. And I think I knew all the story, and then I started after 80 pages, on page number 80, when I'm writing. Then usually the characters, they start to get their own life, and I'm more like not a visitor. I just watch them. I'm more like a watcher. How do they react? And then they change the story, so I know that the book, when it's finished, sometimes it's completely different to what I thought and what was written in my outline.
And what's your typical writing day like? Do you write every day, or are you always working on a new project?
Well, it's I'm always thinking about something, but I wouldn't consider it working every day. But there's a period of time, 3 or 4 months for the first draft. There I work every day, and I start as like a usual working routine at 9 a.m. in the morning, and I start to write as much as I can, even if I know that it might be as good enough to stay in the last draft. But I need to have a first draft, and I know that the first draft, like Hemingway said, the first draft is always crap. Yeah, it is, and maybe the second or third too. So then the process of rewriting starts, and I've got, of course, I've got editors at my publisher, and they keep asking questions when they're read it. So there's spare time between. In between, I can do other things. I can, of course, do private things, or I can do research on other topics. I never write on two stories at the same time. Maybe I think about, or I make some remarks, or write over something, but I never have two projects at the same time.
I'm kind of curious. I always ask my guests what they use to write their books with. You use like Word or some other software program?
Well, because I started. Everything started when I was sitting at a waiting room, and I waited for my former girlfriend, and it was in 2000, so it's 20 years ago. I waited for her to come out of the practice room. But after 1 hour, she was still in there, obviously with a lot other patients, and they moved from room to room till they finally got to see the doctor. But I was thinking, okay, well, what if everybody is telling me she went never in there? She had no appointment. You're alone there, and I would never see her again. And this was no wishful thinking. This was the first thriller I hear. And in my very first book, Therapy, there is a father, and he brings his daughter to a doctor, and they tell him that she never went in there. And so this were the first pages. And the impulse I got on this day, by the way, she came out, the impulse in real life, made me start instantly, without an expose, without an outline, which was not so good because this took then longer. And of course, I didn't buy a writing program or anything. I started with Word. And the only thing I do with Word is, and I'm still using it, is that I have a format so that one page is almost one book page, because then you get the feeling that you wrote a lot of pages.
Yeah.
This is much better than having like the usual Word form, and you think, oh, I wrote 2 pages. No, it's 4 or 3.5. So I formatted it to make it look better and to give me a better feeling. I think this is the best advice to have if you have a how do you say blockade? We say blockade like a writer's block.
Yeah, writer's block. Yeah.
You can't go any further. The good thing is just just change the format, and you have a feeling, well, yeah, you did a good job today.
Yeah, that's so true too. Because I get that too. And then you look at it differently, like in preview mode or something. Then you're like, oh, there you go. It looks nice. Yeah. There you go. Right back at it. Yeah. So I was kind of curious too with everything with the pandemic. Not sure how is that. Did that affect you at all? Did it make any changes to your writing? Or, I mean, we've always been self-isolating as writers.
Yeah. Well, and we are right now in a lockdown too. You can see it. Usually, my hair is a little bit. No, it's usually they say, you're a writer. You're used to being isolated, and lockdown is like daily routine for you. No, I think we all need inspiration, and hopefully if you're an author for psychological thrillers, you don't get the inspiration at home. So it can happen when the parcel is coming to you, but usually you need to talk with people, to get reactions, and this is something that's really missing. And when the we had a first lockdown in March, when this started, and I think the whole world was paralyzed, what is happening right now, this was not a very creative time for me, because I was just, it reminded me a little bit of September 11th, when I was only trying to get all the news everywhere and staring at computer, staring at the television, or reading newspapers. it was it's the same. There's something coming, and you wanted to have more information. It was a true life thriller, and everyone was involved. Actually, this is something that I found out that this is why I like the what if questions. This is why I like to watch people. How do they react with unusual situations? I would have liked it if the pandemic would have been just fictional. That would have been enough. But now the thing is, what cruelty or even like a pandemic or the weird situation is doing to us. It tears down the mask that we have away, and you see the inner core of people. So if you're forced to do and to react instantly because there's a danger, you can't think. You act like you are. So your inner truth comes out, and this is the same like in pandemic. I mean, some people they turn into conspiracy theorists. Some people they get aggressive, some passive, some use it for their political and then for their fortune. They make money with it, or they commit suicide. It's like it changes there comes something from the outside and it changes us. And I think this is a true core of a thriller. So it makes it interesting. It made it interesting to watch. But I had so many. I lost so many hours just watching the news. I really had to say no, come on. Get rid of it. You have to concentrate. Get back to work and do something else, because you can't stare paralyzed at victim data or at the virus.
Yeah, and that's true. And one day, next thing you know, you haven't written for a month. So yeah, it really goes out of control. Yeah. I also noticed when I was looking at your website, you have another book coming out here, Passenger 23.
Yeah, that's right. Passenger 23, which takes place on a cruise ship. I mean, a cruise ship have a hard time already. But I read an article, and it was in 2008. I read an article that an average 23 persons go missing on a cruise ship every year. Not on one cruise ship, but on every cruise ship all over the world. And it was funny that in the US, there were some law firms who are specialized on suing all these big ship companies because this is a multi-billion-dollar business. And all the ship owners, they usually say this when somebody's missing, that he or she commits suicide. But some victims say, and the relatives say, that can't be, and they try to prove it. On the other hand, the owner of the ship, they don't want the ship to be an investigation place for the FBI. But when I heard about this phenomenon, which led me to Passenger 23, I already wrote about people gone missing, for example, in therapy, where this little child disappeared of the practice room. So I said, no, you don't want to write about this again. But then, and it was years later, I had the idea, no, you don't write about somebody who disappears in a ship. You write about somebody where everybody saw, oh, they committed suicide, they were mother and daughter together, they committed suicide. But then 3 months later, out of a sudden, the daughter appears again and proves this theory wrong, that they were suicide. But she's totally paralyzed and shocked, doesn't talk, and a psychiatrist moves on the ship and has just 6 days time to solve the riddle. And the ship goes from Southampton to New York. So the classic Titanic route. Oh. So this is more or less what Passenger 23 is about.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay, I love how your mind goes. So so it wasn't the mystery of what happened. She's there, so something happened to her. So it's trying to figure out what happened. So yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, great. So what are you working on next? Are your books usually do you write series, or are they usually all standalones?
They're usually series. I have only one series, like a mini series, because I had a character. She's a blind woman, a physiotherapist. She's like giving massages to people, and she was such an interesting character, so that led me to 3 books. I'm actually writing on the third, but you can all. Every time you can read them as standalone as well. So I'm more standalone type of guy because I think it would be really, I always put my characters in very strange situations. So it would be very strange if a psychiatrist in the first book receives a package, and the second book, his daughter doesn't come out of the practice room. In the third book, he's on his cruise ship. So, but even for trained readers, I think this could be a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think that's why most psychological thrillers are standalones.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, so you're working so that's what you're working on now. You're working on that third book on that one.
Yeah, I'm actually working on it and try to get the first draft done, knowing that the work is starting when I have the first draft. But I have a better feeling if I know I have the first big move is already done.
And do your books first get published in Germany and Europe before they come to the States, or are they kind of like at the same time?
Really, to be honest, you're blessed with so many male and female crime, suspense, and thriller authors in the States. Nobody's waiting for a German author. I have to admit, I don't feel like a German author because I'm a born Berliner, and born Berliners they think, well, we don't belong to Germany, we belong to Berlin, and it's different. But you don't wait even for a Berlin author. So I'm glad if anyone would give me a try anyway, but it's already a big honor that I'm published at all in your country. I think, which I consider being the home of the thriller and the psychological thriller, and again, it's difficult for foreign authors in the U.S., especially for German authors, because there are not so many German-speaking editors at the publishing houses. So. And then you have to be lucky really to persuade this one person who really can read your book, and he or she really had a hard job to promote it in the conference when nobody is able really to. But that's why there are a lot of translations being made so that a lot of people can read it at the publishing house. And now we're going to release some of my books, but it's a little bit behind than the European market.
Yeah. I know that's something that's happening here in the States, where a lot of they're having their books translated to Germany in other languages as well. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's a little bit more easier. Because it's still, and I think it really is, it's still a quality sign if it says it's a bestseller in the US. It's for us. I mean, we're like we grew up with those kind of literature. It's very new that in Germany we have a crime. To give you one example, when I had my first draft finish of Therapy, I sent it in 2002 to 15 publishing houses in Germany. 13 rejected and 2 haven't answered till now. So it was 100% who said no. But those who answered, they said, we don't see a market for a German author writing thrillers. So maybe you change your name into an American name, then it could work in Germany. Well, this was like the advice they gave us. And this is a little bit changing in Germany. You see a lot of German authors on the German best-selling list. But this wasn't very common. And still, in movies and in a cinema, a lot of people say, well, no, I don't pay for a German movie at the cinema. It has to be an American movie, at least a British movie. But because they know what to do. This is changing, but it's changing more slowly than it's changing in the book market.
Any before I let you go, any advice for because we have some aspiring writers that listen to this podcast, and you have had a lot of experience. Any advice you have for writers?
It really depends on which stage they are. If there are beginners and they're trying to find a publisher with their first book, then my advice, and this is my advice, which I learned from writing thrillers, is like to consider yourself as being a hero of your story of your life. Which means, because after I received 15 rejections, I was asking myself, if I would write a book about a guy who tries to be published and he tries to write a bestseller, what would the book be about? Would the hero in this book send it to a publishing house? They say, "Wow, this is exactly what we wanted. We gave you $2 million in advance, and there's the film rights we sell to Warner." I think this is really unreal, and it's a boring story. The true story is you send it to 15 publishing houses, everyone rejects, nobody wants to have it. Only one says, "Okay, come." But on this day, when you come, you miss the bus and your car doesn't work and it's raining and you get too late. And in the middle process of the signing, the old guy at the publishing house gets a heart attack. He can't sign the contract. I mean, this would be something what was happening in your novel. And we like this because it's realistic that there's so many disadvantages, so many rejections that you get. And this helps sometimes if you don't find a publisher, if you are not being published, or if it only prints a low amount of copy, or if you get a bad review. This is exactly what your hero would. Yeah, but what would the life of your hero in a fictional book would be about? So, and then try to think, what would you make your hero do then to achieve the goal in the end? I think this is a motivational thing, because in the end, everything is about to keep going and don't get angry or to lose the nerve, and to stop too early. This is, I think, the most unwritten books, unpublished book, they stopped too early.
Yeah, it's a long haul, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, and so where can our listeners find you? Do you have a website? Are you on Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff?
So my name is like Sebastian Fitzek, and it's like sebastianfitzek.com. There's an English website, but you also find me on Instagram and on Facebook. They've got this translation button. So I would be happy if you just check it out and give me a try, and just neglect that I'm Berlin.
Sounds good. Yeah, your books. I haven't finished the package, but it's been a great read so far. And I saw you had a great blurb from Harlan Coben. He said Fitzek's thrillers are breathtaking, full of wild twists. That must have been pretty thrilling to get a blurb from him.
Yeah, that's really thrilling, and I'm very blessed that I met him twice, and I know I was a big fan, and I was lucky that in Germany all the time they asked me, "Oh, could you give an advice? Who do you recommend for a good read?" And nobody knew him really, but then I was really lucky that I could recommend him, but now he's number one in Germany too, and paperback, so he doesn't need my recommendation anymore.
All right, Sebastian. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you. And
thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. For show notes and to access the interview archive, please visit my website at thrillerauthors.com. And please do visit thrillingreads.com/rate to leave a rate and review of this podcast wherever it is that you are listening to it. It's the best way to help me get the word out about the podcast to others. And finally, check out my author website at alanpeterson.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time, when I'm back with another interview on Meet the Thriller Author.